Welcome, everybody, to the Tech Ranch. My name is Marv Dorner. I'm filling in today for the Guru of Geek, Marlo Anderson, joined in studio today by Jim Walsh.
Hello.
How you doing, Jim?
Hey, I'm good.
We're left alone again.
Yeah.
You know, every once in a while he just gives us the
Marlo
keys.
goes off on another junket.
Yeah, he's at, I think, the Space Symposium today. Speaking there, I was looking at it online a little bit, and there was a bunch of generals, a bunch of PhD guys, Buzz
Gotta be a
Aldrin,
drag, yeah.
and then Marlo.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping
One
next
of
week,
these things is not like the other.
I wasn't going to go there.
Yeah,
But
I can.
Okay, yeah. So next week you're going to have to check to make sure that he doesn't come back as a cyborg or something crazy. He'll be running the Tech Ranch show in very robotic fashion.
Mm-hmm.
And but today we're going to talk a little bit about video and some of the video things that are taking off online and,
Sure.
and video sharing.
Yeah.
And we're going to be joined in a little bit by Marty McPadden. I'll get him going here in a second. Marty is the CEO of PodJam TV Productions, live video producer. Been at it a long time. I think he worked for ESPN for a little bit.
Right.
Right, Marty? And and Marty, why don't you come on and tell us a little bit about PodJam and some of the other stuff that you've been working on?
Hey, Marty.
Uh-oh.
Marty?
It's not video, it's
we-
audio.
I'm sorry. I
There he
had
is.
my mute on.
Oh, that's quite all
The
right.
mute button. Yeah, we've
The
all
mute
been there.
button.
Mute button, right? But yeah, you mentioned ESPN. Yeah, I was a veteran, almost 20 years there.
Yes, you were.
I left in May of 2014 to pursue, as Marv mentioned, PodJam TV Productions on a full-time basis. So yeah, we do video production, live video shows. We work with agencies and brands to bring their kind of their presence online in the kind of new online world here. And also we do project management. We do a little social media. So yeah, kind of a mix there. So it keeps me very busy.
That's a good thing. Watching you from afar and seeing how busy you are with all kinds of stuff. It's kind of cool to see, especially with some of the new things that are coming online now, and you guys are kind of on the forefront of that, or trying to cut your teeth a little bit with some of those things, and going to be fun to talk about a little bit today, I think.
Absolutely, yeah. It's funny because Marv, I know we've known each other for a while, and the video world, especially online video and live streaming video, is really undergoing a revolution right now. And it's really kind of, and we can get into it a little bit, but it's really an intersect now of the technology and the powerful nature of your mobile devices, the quality that you can get, especially with video, and also the bandwidth, and also the platforms that are sprouting up. Live video streaming has been around for years, but the problem has always been that those three items have not intersected in a way to make it very easy for people to really avail themselves of that. And now that you have the bandwidth, especially mobile, and also the quality on your mobile devices, I mean, it's really taken off, especially when Periscope and Meerkat launched about a year ago. That's when it really started taking off. So, yeah, it's a whole new world now,
Well, we'll get into that a little bit more here in the second and third portions of the show. I wanted to, the first part here, just kind of touch on some tech stuff that maybe occurred last week or late last week, and get your impressions on it. The first one being, and it kind of in your wheelhouse a little bit just a couple of years ago, but I don't know if you've seen the deal that Twitter signed with the NFL to broadcast their Thursday night football games live through the Twitter platform now, and they got it cheap. I think they only paid, well, cheap's relative, but I think they only paid $10 million for 10 games. And have you seen how they're going to do that yet? That's the one thing I've heard. Several guys in the tech industry and some of the other things, they're really unsure on how this is all going to take place. Have you seen anything?
I have. That's a really interesting deal. I have not seen anything as far as the technical nature of how they're going to actually bring the games to their audience. If me just guessing, they do have Periscope in as part of their company, And I would imagine it would be something, on Twitter video. So imagine something maybe involved there. It'll be interesting if they present it directly on Periscope. But the technical nature, I don't know what's happening with it, but it's very interesting, like Marv, as you mentioned. It is very inexpensive. I mean, those NFL properties are the other networks that enter into those agreements, ESPN and CBS and NBC, pay a boatload of money to get those games. And what's interesting is the Thursday night package is not an exclusive package. The other packages are. So they're taking games that, the NFL network themselves, they have a package that they run themselves. But I kind of see it as, and the reason for the low price is the NFL, is really experimenting with, they realize that, things are shifting, and online with social media, and social video. And I think this is really a big test to see, okay, is there an audience there? Will they actually watch it?
Right.
What are the numbers going to be like? And if it's successful, I would fully expect, companies like Facebook and certainly Twitter and maybe even Snapchat, to heavily bid on the rights to these games, and the price will go way, way up. But it'll be very interesting to see, is this a place where people actually going to watch full-length games?
Right. And that was one of the things they did say, is they did give that to them a little bit cheaper. They weren't the highest priced candidate available. So it was kind of interesting to read. And like you said, there's really no plan, or they haven't announced a plan on how they're going to broadcast these games. I know they aren't going to do any authentication. So, currently Verizon customers can watch games, and some of the other folks can see it through CBS and the NFL network and that sort of thing. But this really doesn't have anything in place to limit anybody on the system. So it'll be kind of fun to watch. We'll have to see how they're going to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny with NFL, and I used to know the people in programming at ESPN that would actually go into these negotiations, and it was fascinating to see. And I can tell you, knowing what I know about the NFL and their programming arm, is that they will never turn down money. They will never turn down an opportunity to create another revenue stream.
Jim and I are both nodding our heads. We're the same way.
I mean, and they're brilliant at it, really, when you think about it, because this Thursday night package is not exclusive. And it's amazing. I mean, it shows the strong nature of their product, and also that really live sports or live events are really the last bastion of must-see viewing. So it'll be very interesting how it translates.
Marty, we got to run to a break real quick, and we'll be back with some more Tech Ranch.
Right now, 27.
The Red River Farm Network. Ag News is here on Super Talk 1270.
Welcome back to the Tech Ranch. My name is Marv Dorner. I'm filling in for Marlo today, and we're talking with Marty McPadden about some video things that have kind of popped up in the last year or so. And we were talking a little bit in the last segment, Marty, about some of the video gear. I recently bought my first webcam that I bought in probably 7 or 8 years, and I'm totally blown away by the quality of the image and what you're able to do with that thing. What's some of the basic technologies that you see, especially on the video side, for people that are going to want to do some of the things we're going to talk about with the Periscope and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I always tell people, and I get this a lot, Marv, I always tell people to start with what you have. And, one of the guys I look up to, and I'm going to mention him, he's going to get all embarrassed, but Stephen Haywood, the techbuzz.net, I've been collaborating with him. He is a real professional. He's been doing this a long time, and this is something I'm borrowing from him. That's something he always says, and I adopt it too, is start with what you have. The good news is that, the modern smartphones, the modern devices, all have incredible cameras in them. And also they do pretty good audio as well. The new iPhone, in fact, will do 4K video.
Yep.
I think at 60 frames a second. I mean, it's phenomenal. And one of the things that gives you, now 4K is really not necessary for the web, But what it gives you is you're able to zoom in and still have HD quality because of that huge resolution. And I think that's the biggest thing, and I think also just getting started. We talk with a lot of people that are planning. We get a lot of questions about equipment, and it's really not about the equipment, especially when you first start out. It's really about getting started. Me and Misty, Misty, my wife, and we work together on our business. We started our business, 4 or 5 years ago, part-time. And one of the things we knew we wanted to do video. Now, neither one of us are all that good on camera, but we knew, if we don't get on there, we're never going to learn it. So we actually started a podcast and then also a live video show. We used Google Hangouts back in those days very early on. And really the main objective was just to learn how to do it. So we had guests on, and I'm not even sure if we might have had you on one of the shows. I'm not sure, but we had a bunch of people from people we know through our social connections. And we really learned a lot, and it really helped me propel to this moment where now I use a TriCaster and I have fancy gear and I stream in HD and all this stuff. And I actually do a show now weekly with a friend of mine about video production. I'm on Steven's shows a lot of the time on the Tech Buzz. So yeah, it's really kind of parlayed into, and it's really a step-by-step process. But getting started is the first step. And as long as you're moving to use a sports analogy, as long as you're moving the ball down the field and improving little at a time, then you're going to be great.
Well, what prompted me to buy the new webcam was, and I think I maybe even asked the question of you, is my old one, the lighting just wasn't coming through real well, and I was getting kind of a washed out image and that sort of thing on my screen and what I was broadcasting, and I was completely amazed by what this new $70 webcam was able to bring out just with the same lighting setup. You're right. I mean, just the advances in the last couple of years on some of this equipment is making it possible for anybody to look like they know what they're doing a little bit, at least.
Yeah, I mean, it takes a lot of the times people will ask us is, they'll get intimidated by the equipment. And just what you mentioned there, it takes some of the intimidation factor out of it, some of the excuses out of it, that you need all this fancy gear or you need all this knowledge of how to operate cameras. I mean, luckily now with I don't even have the latest iPhone. I have the iPhone 6 Plus, and the camera on that, 1080p full HD, and as long as you can point and shoot, and get your, get yourself framed up there, you can get pretty good results. Just hold steady, start there, and then you'll kind of work your way up from there. But I think it's the ease of access and the lowering of barriers to get started has really been the key in kind of exploding this whole online video that we're seeing now.
Right, and I came from the other side. I came from the audio side, being a club and a wedding DJ for 25 years. The one thing I was kind of picky about, and maybe overly picky, was making sure I sounded decent. So I bought a microphone that was, a little bit on the higher side. It wasn't crazy. It wasn't a $1,000 microphone or anything like that. It was probably about $100. But, that was one of the things that I kind of picked out as being a big deal to me. And, the couple times I've been on with you, the couple times I've been on with some other folks, that was one of the things that really stood out as being something fairly sounding at least high end is the audio side. And then to me, that was a big deal and that was important.
Yeah, it's interesting, Mark, that you mentioned the importance of audio. This is another thing that we kind of harp on is when people first get on, especially when they're doing a video, and many times it's a compromise, right? You don't have all the stuff ready to go, so you're kind of building as you go. And I always tell people, if you can get your audio right, that would be the top priority, because people are more willing to accept maybe a little bit of hazy video, or maybe it's just not perfect or perfectly lit. But if you can't hear somebody, they're more likely to kind of go on to the next show or the next, link or whatever if you're doing online video. Because if you can't hear it, then you kind of lost everybody, And also, many times when you're doing online video, a lot of content creators will use that in an audio podcast. Yep. And you can imagine that where that's really important when you just have the audio. But if you can get that down, and like you said, it doesn't have to be expensive. You know, I mean, we tell people there's a nice plug and play microphone out there, Audio Technica ATR 2100, less than $50, plug and play USB, works on any computer, and it sounds great. You know, and you start there. You don't need all the fancy stuff. You know, but again, just getting, you know, sounding decent and clear is, you know, that's so important. You know, make that good first impression.
So when you start working with a company or somebody comes in and says they want to do a webcast or do a podcast, what do you do? What do you usually start out with? What do you just tell them to we'll show up and we'll talk through some stuff and get you pointed in the right direction with some content, or is it really up to them and you handle the technical side?
Well, the first thing is to determine what their objective is, right? So, you know, is it to connect with your audience? Is it to show off a product? I mean, really, you got to know what your objective is. And what we like to do is we like to have a plan going in. And one of the things I always say is I use what's called the 90-10 rule. I'm not sure if I just made it up or whatever, but it works for me. So I always say you really 90% of your work is before you hit the air, and 10% is what people actually see. And it's all about the preparation. And that includes preparing your show, and now I'm not saying you have to write out a complete script. I'm saying that you need to have a plan of action as far as what your segments are going to be. Like, just like Marv, just like you putting together your radio show, right? You have a plan of action. We talked, you know, before we got on here.
Jim was
what
just
we're
asking the same
about.
thing. We do. Wow.
I know you. I know you. I mean, you know, I know you do. You know, but I mean, that's the key. And then the other thing is, you know, have a couple of backup plans. So, for example, say if you're doing a podcast or a video cast and you have an interview and you're with someone that, you know, you're not, you know, again, anything can happen. If your whole show is dependent on that particular interview and you don't have a backup plan and that person doesn't show up, then you're kind of sunk, you know. So if you have a backup plan, then you can just go, and then the viewer or the listener has no idea. To them, you're just doing your show, you know. So I always say, like, that's the part that people forget the most is they try to kind of push the easy button, and it really isn't like that. You really got to prepare, and if you're prepared, and also if you're passionate and know your subject matter, then you can talk to it, you know, off the cuff. You don't need to be scripted, and you can, you know, like we're discussing here. I'm very comfortable talking about video. That's what I do, and I don't have a script in front of me. We discussed previously. Okay, we're going to talk about. These are some of the topics we're going to talk about, and we just talk about them because we're comfortable talking about it, you know. So I think that's really the key.
So what do you do about lighting? You know, that seems to be sort of the last piece that anybody can really do to get right. I mean, anybody can get audio right, and with a little bit of working, set up the video right, and then you're stuck with this lighting setup.
Yeah, I would say this. I mean, even that does not have to involve spending a lot of money. It's funny, when I get on video, whether it's on my own show or I do a lot of stuff on a new platform called Blab, which is blab.in, which is a kind of, and you're familiar with this, it's a video conference. And you basically just, now I don't do it necessarily the right way. I would tell you to have 3-point lighting and all that stuff, but I just use 2 lights. And the key is, even lighting is really the key, to put it simply. So I'm able to get away with 2 lights. I have a light that shines from above me, from behind, to give me a little separation with the background. And I just have 1 key light with an umbrella, you know, to give even lighting. Now, even if, I spent like, I think $50 on my light. I got a couple lights with the stands, very inexpensive light setup. But even say if you don't have that, right? So what you could do is you could be in front of a window, use natural lighting. You know, the key is whatever room you're in, especially with online video. So say if you're doing a Google Hangout or some other online video, even lighting's key. And you want to avoid that silhouette effect. I see many people, what they do is they have this bright light source behind them. Right. And then they become the silhouette. And you can't see them, you know. So it doesn't have to be complex. You know, it just has to be even lighting. And the webcams nowadays do a terrific job auto-adjusting to the light in the room.
All right, well, we'll talk a little bit more about some of this stuff, the lighting and other things coming up real soon after a couple minutes on Super Talk. Welcome back to the Tech Ranch. My name is Marv Dorner, filling in for Marlo Anderson today, and joined by Marty McPadden. Marty, we were talking a little bit about some of the new platforms, the personal platforms that are starting to pop up, and one of the newest, in fact, just got announced, I think, last week, is Facebook Video, and I have very little or no experience with the Facebook Video. I haven't messed with it a whole bunch. I do know that it seems to be fairly powerful. So have you played with it at all? Have you messed with that platform at all?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. I had access a little early on, right before Christmas. They turned it on mine,
okay.
And they were kind of slowly rolling it out. And I think for me, I think it's the best implemented live video among all the services right now, like the Periscopes and the Meerkats, those type of mobile services. And the reason is I think they did really well on the Square format, because if you turn your phone, it's the same way. The commenting is manageable. I know I'm Periscope, and I'm not a big Periscope user, but it flies by too fast. Yep. It's a little disjointed, and you really can't interact on the comments. So I think they got it right. And I think the thing that Facebook did, and it's funny because a lot of social media people that I am connected with, some of the concerns expressed were, since they rolled it up to just the verified users, they thought, oh man, we're just not going to get it. But I had a feeling that they were just going to roll it out slowly. Technical reasons why they had to scale it out. But I think they did it the right way, because now not only does everyone have access to it, but now they're rolling it out for pages and also for Facebook groups. And that brings a whole other set of interesting options to people.
Yeah, it does.
Like, for example, I have a Facebook group for my show. So what I can do is, instead of broadcasting it generally, I could just broadcast to my group things that may just be of interest to that group. And then the analytics are bar none. I mean, some of the best. So I think Facebook, I'll tell you, I think it's Facebook's game to lose right now.
It was kind of funny, some of the things you touched on. I was listening to some podcast last week, and I heard Leo Laporte, who's kind of a big tech guy on This Week in Google. He said that when he was with Tech TV, several years ago, they spent, over 6 years, they spent $600 million to get into 41 million homes. And Comcast paid $300 million or something like that to get into those 41 million homes. And with Facebook Video now, you could easily, if you wanted to, you could get into 1.5 or potentially get into 1.5 billion people, and it costs you whatever your phone cost and some time. So it's kind of
it's
mind blowing
amazing
to see. What
Marv,
you can do.
you're touching on all the right points there. I mean, it's really a transformation. I mean, I worked for one of the largest sports media company, if not the top sports media company in the world, for a large part of my career. And it's funny because I left there now, it'll be 2 years in May, and the previous 5 years, they would say, oh, the cable model is here to stay, blah, blah, blah. But behind the scenes, they're smart people over there, at ESPN, and they've been preparing for years, to kind of go through this digital transformation. And they have done a nice job. They have digital platforms up right now. Most of their programming is available on basically whatever device you use through ESPN. Watch ESPN, I believe, is the app name. So they know, and they're not the only ones. There's I think all these different content, the major media companies realize that we are really going through a huge transformation here. It's really about being on any screen that people want to access the content, and the viewer, instead of, we grew up when the networks were in control. Now the viewer's in control, and it's getting the content out there. Now I think I think they're a little scared, especially in the cable model where, ESPN gets a ton of money from subscriber fees. Now they've got to transfer their business model over to this new model where everyone has the choice of whether they subscribe or not. So
right.
We're in very interesting times, to say the least.
Yeah, and one of the, I'm kind of torn on the Facebook Video on whether, I know there's potential there, as a business person and somebody that wants to get involved and just starting to cast on Blab and that sort of thing. But the part that scares me or makes me nervous is my Facebook feed now is just going to be littered with just this horrible just group of videos that are going to be live streaming nothing, or stuff that they're not supposed to. I mean, the potential to, I know when Periscope and some of those other ones showed up, one of the first things that started causing some issues is one of the first big things was a UFC fight that was broadcast live by a bunch of people. And so how they're going to limit that is really kind of scary to see how they can find a way to do that.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a really good point. In fact, I saw it on Periscope and some of these other services with these. And I think you bring up a good example with some of these, higher level prize fights, where they're available on pay-per-view, $50, $60 a pop. And you got people paying it and then just rebroadcasting on these services. It's almost like whack-a-mole, where you're just trying to stay ahead of the game. I mean, Google has some special software, to catch or try to, catch copyright violations, and and the only problem is with automatic, sometimes there's false positives. But yeah, that's a huge issue, and here's the thing, and I don't know how you feel about it, but the question is, do like these content creators, like say, for example, a lot of the sports leagues are now grappling with this, right? Can you rebroadcast or stream parts of the game,
right,
from your seat? And do they find a way to embrace it, or they try to keep fighting it? I mean, I think they're going to have to find a way to involve the view. I mean, some creative way to maybe embrace it, because I don't know how you stay ahead of it.
Well, I think every time this happens, and this happened with VHS tapes, with cassette tapes, with CDs. I mean, no matter what platform or what media, there always seems to be people that are finding a way around the system, and it always seems that the companies that get out, like you said, get out in front of it and embrace it a little bit and find a way to monetize what's being broadcast, regardless of where it's coming from. Those are the ones that seem to get it and be embraced by the users, and then they also see the benefits of it monetarily.
Oh, absolutely. And I think also the other thing is it pushes content creators to produce the best possible quality, right? So even with the great cameras in these phones and these devices, you're only going to get so good. It's not going to be, direct sound and, really nice cameras. There's going to be a quality gap there. So maybe that's what it is that, just produce really high quality. And you know what? Maybe don't worry about the few that you're going to lose. If people are going to stream it, they're not going to pay you anyways.
Right.
So maybe it's a preview kind of deal. So, I don't know. It's going to be something tough to grapple with for these media companies.
So what are your? And you mentioned that you're doing a Blab show, and I actually just started doing a Blab show here a couple weeks ago. The video seems to be a little less high quality as Facebook, but general, kind of. I do like the system. And how do you see the two comparing, or is there going to be any sort of issue with those two at some point?
Well, I got quite a bit to say about that. I see the way, and stop. I know we might be coming up against the break, so, just cut in if we have to go. But right now I see Blab. Blab is based on what's called WebRTC. It's in-browser video technology. And it's just not. I produce my shows in full HD. I stream to multiple CDNs, content delivery networks, and I treat it like a TV show. Again, I talked about Stephen Hay with the Tech Buzz. He's really my inspiration for this. And he's been doing it for a long time, and he does it that way. And that's how I treat it. I do full high quality. Even when I get on Blab, I get on with all my gear. I have a full high quality presentation. And then basically what I use for Blab is I syndicate the Blab. I rebroadcast the Blab. And they have this cool drop-in feature where I can drop in one of the CDNs I broadcast to is YouTube Live. So I'm able to drop in the YouTube Live link and then present the full HD on Blab, and versus going on directly. The way I use Blab really is I'll get on post-show and do like a little post-show after my show and bring people in And I won't record, I'll just do it live. But yeah, I'm at a different level. I think Blab is great for people just starting out. It has the tools there. I would not use it as a production platform. That's me because I'm doing a different style. But for people just starting out, it's great to, we talked about it earlier, just get started. Right. Because it presents the tools in a very easy way to use it, so.
Yeah, that's the reason I actually chose it as my kind of a podcasting platform. And, we had a little bit of issues. You mentioned video and audio problems last week. And last week we had an audio thing that was picking up everything that was said in a coffee house. And it was kind of distracting, but, we fought our way through it and muted where we could. But I think just for someone who's just starting out and just starting to use video as a broadcasting platform, I thought Blab was extremely easy to use, and we had some people, just live that were there, kind of listening in and contributing a little bit. So I think that's only going to grow. I don't know if it's going to be anything that's going to compete with Facebook, on the personal side. So I think, they do kind of exist in a different world, I guess, where Periscope and Meerkat kind of seem to be more on the direct competitor to Facebook Live.
Yeah, those on Facebook Live, Periscope, and Meerkat just recently pivoted. They're getting out of that whole live streaming game. Right. I think they're going to be pivoting and be more like a social network. Yeah. So you could tell already, and they've only been out a year, so you can tell the competitive landscape of this space is fierce. Mm-hmm. So I just think that Blab has a shot, I think, and again, they're building in public, they're beta. But yeah, it's going to be a process because, I think what people don't understand is there's so much behind the scenes that they have to build. Right. And the WebRT standard is constantly evolving.
All right. Well, we'll be back with some more Super Talk right after these messages.
Right now, 30.
Here's Sean Hannity, weekday afternoons on Super Talk 1270.
Welcome back to the Tech Ranch. My name is Marv Dorner, filling in for Marlo Anderson. Just wrapping up our conversation with Marty McPadden. So Marty, we've touched a few times on some of the work you do with some companies and some other things, and even sort of creating the plan. How do you see most of the companies you deal with, especially somebody a little bit smaller that might want to do a video podcast or even just an audio podcast, as how do they choose the right person for the job? How are they picking their topics? How are they moving forward?
That's a great question. I think getting back to just starting and preparation and knowing who your audience is. I would say this. I think it starts by there's several established social networks out there: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, certainly the big ones out there, and you want to have a presence on these networks, and you want to start that conversation going. I think the important thing is when you're creating content is you want to create content that your audience is interested in and can be helpful. So that was kind of the and I'll use myself as an example. That's kind of the genesis of our show. So I'm doing it with my buddy Mark Rogers, and we do a show on video production. And one of the things I saw, especially, we started it on Blab, and now we've transitioned, and we really do it. I do it on my own site, and I syndicate the Blab. But we saw a need there for people that really want to know what video production was, and certainly the equipment and the technical, but also what we say. Well, also it's important to know how to do it, how to be in front of the camera, how to present yourself. So right. Mark is an on-camera professional. He's actually he's actually worked at stations. He's been, a sports director, sports reporter. So I said, well, put the two together, And so we listen to our audience. We have our Facebook group, and we listen. What do they want to know? And that's how we construct our shows. So if you're a business, say if you're a dog grooming or a pet grooming shop, right? Then, you want to get in contact with your potential customers, and what you want to do is put content out there that is within your expertise and really listen to your audience. Say, what do you want to know about? What don't you know, and how can we help you understand what we do, And that's how you can play in your shows, And also with social is you want to keep that conversation going. For me, making that personal connection, that's what's been great about, and we're only today we're going to be today, and we do our show today, and today we're doing our 20th episode, which to me is still a new show.
Right.
That's another thing. You got to be consistent. But up until this point, I mean, we have a Facebook group. We've had those conversations. I've met some tremendous people, and it's really like a little community that you're building. And if everyone feels part of it, they're going to be there for you, and you as the content creator have to listen to your audience, and you do. It's a great experience. It really brings a lot of joy to me, and knowing that I had some knowledge I can help people with, right? And they help spread the word because they're appreciative that you're sharing this, And the other thing is, I'm never afraid to give away free content because my audience is made up of two main components. One are the do-it-yourselfers that want to know how to do it. So they're not really going to be in the position to pay you for any services. So you're really helping them for free, and that's okay. But at the same time, what you're doing is you're also talking to the folks, the businesses, like you mentioned, the people that either don't have the skill, don't have the time, or a little of both. And they need to know that you know what you're talking about and can do it. So you're talking to them as well. And then they're the ones that you make that connection with, and you start, and they might want to put together a show, and they have budget. And that's where you start that conversation, because then they are comfortable with you. They know, okay, you actually do your own show. Your show is high quality.
Right.
Okay, I feel that you can do it for us too.
And
that's really how it begins.
Yeah, you touched a little bit on the social side, and that's the Facebook video and Blab. One of the neatest parts of that whole deal is sitting there and watch comments and questions and everything kind of come in almost real time, and being able to respond to them and bringing an audience even into the show if you're doing it that way. And, that I think that's a huge step forward compared to, just running your show with almost by yourself and just sitting in a room and not having a way to talk to that group at all.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that's the big advantage of Blab, especially for people just starting out, is it gives you that production platform to bring people in, so say if you wanted to get into doing a show and either have a co-host or you do an interview show and you don't really have the technical knowledge out of the gate. I mean, that's what's great about a service like Blab is that you can bring up to 4 people in at one time. You can have those conversations. You can record it. So it's a great place to start out. For me, the way I do it, and again, giving props to Stephen Haywood and the way he does it, is I actually produce my show all internally. So I'll bring when I do my show with Mark Rogers, I bring him in via Skype. Mm-hmm. And I have a fancy video switcher, and I bring him in independently, and I do all the show here. I actually record it locally as well, all composited, and then I stream it out via an encoder to another service that goes out and puts it out to 6 different HD video services plus Blab. And I drop it into Blab. So that's how I do it. And that's a little bit more advanced. But again, you start out, like you said, Blab is a great place to start. I could actually bring in Facebook Live. I can bring in any other video source to bring my guests in, but I do it all internal here. So a little bit fancier, I guess.
Yeah, you got a little bit of equipment. I've seen you set that up and take it down before, and it's not it's sort of like me with my DJ equipment. You see, it looks all shiny and fun, and then you see the guy standing over in the corner coiling up miles of cable at the very end after everything's done.
You know what it's like, Marv, right? You know what it's like.
Yep, when you're sitting there for an extra hour and just making sure everything's put away and done, the way it's supposed to, so that next time it's a little bit easier to set up. So I totally understand where you're coming from on there. Any other platforms that you're seeing maybe on the verge of coming out? I know South by Southwest was always sort of a place these things got announced. I didn't really hear anything this year that really jumped out to everybody.
Yeah, it's funny. We actually went there this year, and nothing. I think Facebook Live is really the last one since they rolled it out to everybody, and what they're doing is that I think the battle lines are kind of set. I will say that, just keep on the lookout. I think this is not over. I think you'll see other services and other options roll out, as we proceed through the year. I think if people think they're late to the party, they are mistaken. This is just getting going. Expect a lot more to come, and so most of them will fail because it's just it's hard to gain traction and gain scale. But we are just at the beginning, tip of the iceberg on this stuff.
Yeah,
so it's very, very exciting.
I think that's definitely the case because nobody saw even Facebook video coming. I mean, I think everybody knew they were on the verge of doing something, but I don't know if they saw anything this easy to use and this this powerful to be able to share, like I said, to 1.5 billion people with the flick of a switch.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Facebook video with the large user base. I mean, a lot of people don't understand that the incredible infrastructure that has to be in place to be able to make all this stuff possible, and to make it as push button easy as it is for the end user. And it's phenomenal. I mean, I get into all the geeky stuff, all the technical stuff, so I appreciate what all these services are trying to do, and it's a monumental task to make it appear, make it that easy for the end user. But yeah, I mean, it's just going to improve over time. The codecs are going to be better. The compression, all the technical stuff is going to get better. But it's very, very exciting, and I love it because, I mean, I've been doing this for a while, and it's great to see the accessibility and what you can do on your own. I mean, I'm trying to build my own network, and using Stephen Haywood as an inspiration. Streaming 24/7. I have my own website, btslive.com. I stream right now. It's just a landing page, but I stream 24/7. When I'm not live, I stream reruns, just like a network. And this is what's possible. You can be on set-top boxes. I mean, this is really what's possible for the just the average content creator.
Sure.
And it doesn't take a lot of money or necessarily a ton of skill. It takes a little bit of learning, but it's within reach.
Well, Marty, where can everybody reach you, or where can they follow you a little bit if they're more interested in more information about what you're doing?
Sure. I am on Twitter at Marty McPadden. I'm pretty much Marty McPadden everywhere. I just started using Snapchat and all that stuff. And Podjam, PODJAM.tv is my company website. My show, which is actually on today, live at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, so a little over an hour from now. If you guys want to check it out, it's BTS Live. That stands for Behind the Scenes, btslive.com. I'll be streaming there. And if you want to join me on Blab, that's good too. But btslive.com is where you can see it in full high definition.
Sounds awesome. Well, thanks for joining us, Marty. And thanks for listening for everybody. And we'll see you next time on the Tech Ranch.